Most people think Jupiter is harmless. After all, it's just a big striped ball hanging far away in space, a beautiful planet you see through a telescope. Astronomers even call it the protector of Earth. But here's the illusion. Jupiter is not just another planet. It's a cosmic monster. Jupiter is so massive that it contains more than twice the mass of every other planet in the solar system combined. If you gathered Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune and crushed them together, Jupiter would still outweigh them. Think about that. One planet outweighs everything else. Now imagine standing near something that powerful. Gravity so strong it could rip apart moons, swallow comets, and distort space around it. People picture Jupiter as a giant version of Earth, but Jupiter isn't an Earth-like planet at all. It's something far stranger and far more terrifying. When you look at Jupiter through a telescope, it really looks like a planet you could visit. You see clouds. You see colorful bands. It almost feels like if you flew there in a spaceship, you'd eventually break through the clouds and find something solid underneath. Maybe giant mountains, maybe a vast ocean, maybe just a rocky surface like Earth or Mars. That's the illusion, because on Jupiter, there is no surface, none at all. Imagine flying an airplane into a thick layer of clouds. At first, it's just mist outside the window. Then the air grows denser. The winds get stronger. Now, imagine that cloud layer doesn't end after a few kilometers. It keeps going, and going, and going. Jupiter is made mostly of hydrogen and helium, the same gases that fill party balloons on Earth. But Jupiter's gravity is enormous, and it squeezes those gases tighter and tighter the deeper you go. Think about diving into the ocean. At the surface, the water feels normal, but the deeper you swim, the heavier the pressure becomes. Submarines that explore Earth's deepest trenches have to be incredibly strong just to survive. Now imagine an ocean thousands of kilometers deep. That's Jupiter's atmosphere. As you descend, the gas becomes thicker and heavier until it stops behaving like gas at all. It starts acting like liquid. There's no moment where you hit the ground. You would simply keep sinking deeper into crushing pressure and rising heat. It's like falling into a storm that never ends. And if that sounds frightening, wait until you hear about the storms themselves. Because Jupiter isn't just a deep atmosphere. It's the most violent weather machine in the entire solar system. On Earth, storms come and go. A hurricane might rage for a few days, maybe a week. It causes chaos, floods cities, knocks down trees, and then it fades away. Nature eventually calms down, but Jupiter doesn't play by those rules. On Jupiter, there is a storm so enormous, so powerful, and so stubborn that it has been raging for more than 350 years. It's called the Great Red Spot. Now imagine the biggest hurricane you've ever seen on the news. Picture those giant spiraling clouds from satellite images. Now make it 3 times wider than Earth. That's the size of this storm. If you could drop our entire planet inside the Great Red Spot, there would still be room left over. And the winds? They scream across the planet at speeds of about 400 miles per hour, faster than any hurricane ever recorded on Earth. But here's the part that feels almost unbelievable. We've been watching this storm since the 1600s. When the first astronomers pointed their telescopes at Jupiter, the Great Red Spot was already there, swirling, churning, roaring. That means this storm was raging when Isaac Newton was discovering gravity. It survived the rise and fall of empires, the invention of electricity, the first airplanes, the first computers, and it's still going. Why? Because Jupiter never gives it a reason to stop. There are no continents to slow it down, no oceans or mountains to break its momentum, just endless atmosphere feeding the storm, a hurricane with no land to weaken it. a storm with no finish line. And if you think that's terrifying, you haven't even seen what Jupiter's gravity can do yet. When people think about Jupiter, they usually imagine storms, clouds, maybe some colorful stripes. But the real monster hiding inside Jupiter is something you can't even see: gravity. Now, gravity on Earth feels normal because we're used to it. You drop your phone, it falls. You jump, you come back down. No surprises. But Jupiter's gravity is on a completely different level. Jupiter is so massive that if you could somehow stand on its upper clouds, gravity there would pull on you with about 2.5 times the force you feel on Earth. Let's make that real. If you weigh 70 kilograms on Earth, Jupiter would make you feel closer to 180 kilograms. Imagine suddenly carrying 2 extra people on your back everywhere you go. Your legs would struggle. Your movements would slow down. Even standing up would feel exhausting. And here's the unsettling part. Remember what we talked about earlier? Jupiter doesn't have a solid surface, so gravity wouldn't just hold you down on the ground. It would pull you deeper and deeper into the planet. Imagine jumping into a swimming pool, except the water keeps getting heavier, thicker, and hotter the farther you sink. You can't climb out. You can't stand. Gravity just keeps dragging you downward. And Jupiter's gravity doesn't only affect things nearby. It stretches millions of kilometers into space, capturing 79 moons and bending the paths of comets and asteroids that wander too close. In a way, Jupiter acts like a giant cosmic vacuum cleaner. But if gravity is what pulls things inward, the real nightmare begins when you realize what happens the deeper you fall. Now imagine something truly unsettling. You're falling into Jupiter. At first, it might not seem so bad. You drift through thick clouds painted with orange, white, and brown streaks. Winds roar around you, but the view would probably be breathtaking, like floating through a giant alien sky. But the deeper you go, the atmosphere starts to fight back. Pressure begins to rise. On Earth, the air above your head presses down on you with about 1 atmosphere of pressure. Your body is perfectly adapted to it. But descend into Jupiter's atmosphere, and that number climbs fast. 10 times Earth's pressure. 100 times. 1,000 times. Imagine being at the bottom of Earth's deepest ocean trench, the Mariana Trench, nearly 11 kilometers below sea level. Even there, the pressure is about 1,000 times stronger than the air around you. Jupiter goes far beyond that. And unlike the ocean, there is no solid ground to stop your descent. It's like diving into an ocean where the water keeps getting heavier forever. Eventually, the hydrogen gas around you becomes so compressed it behaves like liquid hydrogen, a strange, dense fluid formed under unimaginable pressure. Your spacecraft would already be in serious trouble long before reaching this depth. Metal would begin to bend. Walls would groan. Every layer deeper into Jupiter squeezes harder than the last. And yet, this isn't even the strangest part, because even deeper inside Jupiter, something happens to hydrogen that sounds almost impossible. The gas that fills party balloons on Earth turns into metal. By the time you fall deep enough into Jupiter, the world around you stops behaving the way anything on Earth does. Remember that hydrogen gas we talked about? The same light gas that fills balloons. Down inside Jupiter, gravity squeezes it so hard that the atoms are forced incredibly close together. The pressure is millions of times stronger than the air around you right now. At that point, hydrogen stops acting like a gas. It stops acting like a liquid. It becomes something far stranger: liquid metal. Yes, hydrogen, the simplest element in the universe, begins to behave like a shiny, electrically conducting metal. Imagine an ocean larger than Earth itself, not made of water, but of liquid metallic hydrogen. A dark, dense, metallic sea swirling deep inside the planet. If that sounds impossible, Remember that pressure can completely change how matter behaves. Carbon becomes diamond under pressure. Sand melts into glass when heated. Inside Jupiter, pressure rewrites the rules again. Hydrogen becomes metal. But here's where things become truly mind-bending. This metallic ocean is not sitting quietly. It's moving. Jupiter spins extremely fast, one full rotation every 10 hours. For a planet 11 times wider than Earth, that's incredibly fast. So this ocean of metallic hydrogen is constantly swirling, churning, and flowing around Jupiter's interior. And whenever a huge mass of electrically conducting fluid moves like that, something powerful happens. It generates electricity, enormous amounts of it, which means Jupiter is quietly operating like a gigantic planet-sized power generator. And that generator creates something even more terrifying than storms, gravity, or crushing pressure. A magnetic field so powerful it can kill spacecraft. Now imagine something you can't see, but that could kill you in minutes. Deep inside Jupiter, that swirling ocean of metallic hydrogen acts like a giant electrical generator. As it moves and churns, it creates a magnetic field around the planet. But Jupiter's magnetic field isn't just a little stronger than Earth's. It's enormous. In fact, Jupiter's magnetic field is about 20,000 times more powerful than Earth's. It stretches millions of kilometers into space, forming a giant invisible bubble around the planet. Inside that bubble, something terrifying happens. Charged particles from the sun, tiny bits of high-energy radiation, get trapped by Jupiter's magnetic field. Instead of drifting harmlessly away, they begin to spiral around the planet at incredible speed. The result? A deadly radiation belt surrounding Jupiter. Think of it like a giant invisible storm made of energetic particles. Not wind, not lightning. Radiation. And it's unbelievably intense. A human astronaut flying through Jupiter's radiation belts without heavy protection would receive a fatal dose of radiation in just minutes. Even spacecraft struggle to survive there. NASA's Juno spacecraft, currently orbiting Jupiter, had to be built like a cosmic tank. Its electronics are sealed inside thick titanium walls just to survive the radiation long enough to collect data. And even then, engineers know the radiation will slowly damage the spacecraft over time. So Jupiter doesn't just crush things with gravity. It doesn't just drown you in endless storms. It surrounds itself with a lethal, invisible shield. And yet, despite all this chaos and danger, Jupiter plays a surprising role in the solar system. In some ways, this terrifying giant may actually be protecting us. Now, here's a strange twist in Jupiter's story. After everything we've seen, the crushing gravity, endless storms, and deadly radiation, you might think Jupiter is simply a terrifying monster sitting out there in space. But sometimes, monsters can also be guardians. Jupiter's gravity is so enormous that it acts like a giant cosmic vacuum cleaner for the solar system. Picture a bowling ball sitting in the middle of a trampoline. Anything rolling nearby naturally curves toward it. That's what Jupiter does to wandering space rocks. Comets, asteroids, and icy objects drifting through the outer solar system often get pulled off course by Jupiter's gravity. Some are captured, some are flung away into deep space, and sometimes they slam straight into the planet. We actually witnessed this happen in 1994. A comet called Shoemaker-Levy 9 was torn apart by Jupiter's gravity and crashed into the planet. The impacts were so powerful that they created dark scars in Jupiter's atmosphere larger than Earth itself. Think about that. An explosion big enough to leave a mark larger than our entire planet, and Jupiter simply absorbed it. Now imagine if something like that hit Earth instead. Scientists believe that without Jupiter's gravitational influence, the inner solar system might experience far more asteroid impacts. In a strange way, Jupiter may act like a giant shield that deflects or captures dangerous objects before they reach us. So Jupiter isn't just a destructive force, it's also a protector. But here's the part that makes Jupiter even more fascinating. For all its size and power, this planet sits on the edge of becoming something else entirely, something far brighter, because Jupiter is almost a star. Now, here's a thought that sounds almost like science fiction. Jupiter is not just a planet. In a strange way, it's a failed star. That sounds dramatic, but there's a real idea behind it. Stars form when enormous clouds of gas collapse under their own gravity. As the gas squeezes tighter and tighter, the core becomes extremely hot and dense. Eventually, something remarkable happens. Atoms begin to fuse together. Hydrogen turns into helium, releasing enormous amounts of energy. That's what makes a star shine. Our sun is doing exactly that right now, fusing hydrogen in its core and producing the light and heat that keep Earth alive. Now, here's where Jupiter enters the story. Jupiter is made mostly of hydrogen and helium, just like the Sun. It's also incredibly massive, more massive than all the other planets combined. But it's still not massive enough. To ignite nuclear fusion and become a true star, Jupiter would need to be about 80 times more massive than it is now. In other words, if Jupiter had formed just a little differently, gathering more gas from the early solar system, it might have become a small star called a brown dwarf. Imagine that. Our solar system could have had two suns in the sky. Earth's nights might never have been completely dark. Instead, Jupiter sits right on the border between planet and star, massive, powerful, but just shy of igniting. It's like a cosmic engine that almost turned on, but never quite did. And that raises a fascinating question. If Jupiter is already this powerful without becoming a star, what does that say about the incredible forces shaping our universe? After everything we've uncovered, you might think Jupiter is terrifying because of one specific thing. Maybe it's the storms the size of planets. Maybe it's the crushing gravity. Maybe it's the deadly radiation surrounding the planet. But the real reason Jupiter is scary is something deeper. It reveals what happens when the laws of physics operate on enormous scales. On Earth, physics feels gentle. Gravity holds us to the ground. Storms come and go. The atmosphere keeps us comfortable. But Jupiter shows us what those same rules look like when you multiply everything by 1,000. Storms that last centuries. Gravity strong enough to swallow entire moons. Pressure that turns the lightest gas in the universe into liquid metal. A magnetic field so powerful it creates invisible radiation traps around the planet. Jupiter is like a demonstration experiment, the universe turning the knobs of physics all the way up. And here's the strange part. Despite all that chaos, Jupiter also helps keep our little world safe. Its gravity sweeps up wandering comets and asteroids that might otherwise threaten Earth. So the same planet that looks like a cosmic monster may also be one of our greatest protectors. That's the fascinating thing about the universe. The most frightening objects are often the most important ones. Jupiter reminds us that the cosmos isn't designed for comfort or safety. It's a place where simple physical laws create worlds so powerful and strange they almost feel unreal. And yet, from a tiny blue planet orbiting a quiet star, we've learned enough to understand this giant, which might be the most astonishing discovery of all.